Welcome to MetaBookNook, deep dives for curious minds. We've got a really fascinating text this time, based on Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil.
Yes, it's presented as this, well, almost unbelievable interview.
Exactly. Our goal today is to dive deep into that dialogue, pull out the key ideas Hill explored about, human potential and maybe what holds us back.
Think of it as us sort of unpacking these pretty provocative concepts together.
Right. So let's settle in for a kind of fireside chat exploring these ideas.
Well, the first thing that jumps out is Hill's own story, the context he gives. He mentions this real crisis point.
Yeah, a moment of serious despair where he apparently considered destroying all his manuscripts as life's work.
It really grounds the whole thing, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Makes you think about how our own struggles shape what we understand, what we can teach.
Totally. He talks about hitting rock bottom, making this vow, and then this sudden clarity while looking at the moon.
Like a switch flipped.
Yeah, realizing he taught others about overcoming fear, and now, well, now it was his turn. He even quotes that poem, Invictus.
I am the master of my fate.
I'm the captain of my soul. Paraphrased. But you get the idea. It really feels like a turning point.
And it highlights that idea, that real authority often comes from navigating your own storms.
Right. And his reaction was strange, too, wasn't it? Stopping, saluting some unseen entity?
Yeah, it suggests a really powerful, almost mystical experience for him, a sense of receiving something important.
And it's out of this intense personal battle that he develops one of his big ideas.
The seed of an equivalent benefit.
Exactly. The idea that every single failure, every bit of adversity contains this potential for something equally good.
But just the seed, right? Not the finished product. You still have to, well, nurture it.
Right. It's not just finding a silver lining. It's actively using the setback as like fuel, turning it into a stepping stone.
And he was adamant, wasn't he? Claimed he found zero exceptions in all his research.
Yeah, none. He even brings up people like Christ Edison, figures who faced enormous difficulties before their big breakthroughs.
Which makes you wonder, are obstacles maybe just part of the deal for achieving something significant?
It definitely shifts your perspective on adversity. Hill sort of muses about infinite intelligence, this universal wisdom.
Like maybe there's a bigger plan where overcoming challenges is actually necessary for leadership or service.
Yeah, something like that. He admits he wouldn't want to go through it all again.
Who would?
Right. But he valued the knowledge gained, which leads us neatly into the core of the text.
The interview itself
Self.
with the devil
It's quite the setup. The devil demanding to be called Your Majesty.
and claiming control over, what was it, 98% of people?
An astonishing number. You have to wonder, is that literal or more symbolic of just widespread negative thinking?
It's definitely a dramatic way to personify those forces, isn't it? He describes himself as negative energy in the minds of those who fear him.
Even saying he occupies half of every atom, it's this idea of a really pervasive influence.
And his main tactic is super subtle, planting thoughts.
So cleverly that people think they're their own ideas.
It really makes you question your own thoughts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How many are genuinely original versus, influenced?
His whole strategy seems to be about preventing conscious, focused thought.
And using fear, like the fear of eternal punishment, as leverage. Even admitting he can't actually punish anyone.
It's the fear itself, the mental space it takes up, that gives him power. He claims this battle started way back when humans began thinking.
A constant war against positive thought. And thinkers, independent thinkers, are his enemies.
And where does he supposedly hang out?
In the minds of the earthbound, people who don't think for themselves. The less you think independently, the more room he has, essentially.
A pretty stark warning. Less thinking equals more vulnerability.
And he sees things like love, faith, hope, the laws of nature. Those are the opposition.
And forces he tries to undermine, getting his power by siphoning off the mental energy of the people he controls.
Almost parasitic.
What's really surprising, though, are some of his takes on society.
Oh yeah, like philanthropy. Suggesting that genuinely empowering generosity could actually hurt his cause. He mentions Rockefeller, I think.
Right. It makes you think about the ripple effects of actions, even good ones.
And his focus on controlling the young? That's disturbing.
Talking about habits like drinking, smoking. But the emphasis on cigarettes is wild, especially for that time period.
Saying cigarettes specifically destroy persistence, concentration, imagination, willpower, paving the way for other bad habits.
It's quite a specific insight, for the supposed devil.
He also mentions mass fear, linking it to world wars, economic crashes.
Makes sense. Widespread anxiety creates fertile ground for that kind of negative influence. His targets are clearly those who don't think for themselves.
Which brings us to what he calls his cleverest trick.
Drifting.
Exactly. His number one way of catching people.
And a drifter is, well, someone who doesn't think independently, gets pushed around by circumstances, just accepts life.
Doesn't know what they want, holds opinions they didn't really form themselves. It's quite the critique.
And he claims this starts really young, even influencing parents, heredity, environment.
Like a long game strategy.
He lists these doors he uses to get in: fear, superstition, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, laziness.
Standard human vulnerabilities, really.
He points a finger at aimless schooling, too. Lack of purpose making young people susceptible.
That's a big question about education, isn't it? What should its purpose be?
And it's fascinating how he cautions Hill not to reveal this trick involving parents, teachers, religious leaders.
Suggesting they'd fight back hard. Makes you wonder what forces might resist people thinking too freely.
He admits accurate thought belongs to his opposition.
Right, and claims he manipulates institutions, home, church, school, making them think they're fighting him while they actually promote drifting.
They be coming.
Then he breaks down how drifting shows up everywhere. Health, marriage, career, savings, environment, dominating thoughts.
It's like a total system for keeping people passive and unfocused.
Connecting drifting to procrastination, laziness, indifference, basically living life asleep at the wheel.
He even says humans are the only creatures who drift by defying natural laws. Like it's a uniquely human failing.
And the consequence. He claims drifting is the main cause of failure for people and even nations.
Contrasting drifters with non-drifters, those who know what they want, have determination, use their own minds.
Which leads into the next big concept, hypnotic rhythm.
This is how he makes his control permanent, right? He compares it to hypnosis.
Exactly. And fear, especially fear of death, is the main way he pulls people into this whirlpool, he calls it.
Once you're in, it's hard to get out.
Yeah, and interestingly, he doesn't mind religious leaders talking about him as long as they instill fear. Negative attention works for him.
But he is worried about a real thinker emerging, someone who understands how to reverse fear's power.
Which is why the fear of criticism is supposedly his big weapon against potential whistleblowers.
It even makes you wonder about Hill's own delay in publishing this manuscript. Was it fear? Or maybe the devil's influence, as he suggests.
Adds a layer of meta-commentary, doesn't it?
He says he has no power over real scientists, though.
Because they think for themselves, study natural laws. Their whole method is based on independent thought.
Hill apparently just barely escaped this hypnotic rhythm himself by forcing the devil's confession in this interview.
And the bribes used against Hill were sex and the desire for self-expression, things the devil twisted.
But it was working with his wife, that mastermind principle, two minds focused together, that broke the spell.
Highlighting the power of collaboration, accessing that infinite intelligence together.
He stresses that willingness, even just through neglecting your mind, makes you vulnerable to these negative forces and hypnotic rhythm.
It's the law that makes your dominant thoughts and habits stick, positive or negative. Very much like the law of attraction idea. What you focus on grows.
Okay, so as the counter strategy, Hill lays out these 7 principles of freedom.
Right, the roadmap for taking back control.
Let's see. Definiteness of purpose.
Mastery over self.
Learning from adversity.
Controlling environmental influence or associations.
Time. Using it consciously.
Heart harmony. Acting with conviction.
And caution. Thinking first.
Let's focus on number 1, definiteness of purpose. The devil himself says this slams the door in his face.
It's something we're born with, apparently, but we let it slip away through inaction. That has to be a conscious policy.
The ultimate anti-drifting tool.
Right.
Makes all the devil's promises useless.
And even good habits can be bad if they lead to drifting away from your main purpose, like being overly focused on one thing to the detriment of your core goal.
Yeah, purpose is primary. Even a weak plan pursued with definite purpose can work. Perseverance matters more than changing your purpose every time a plan fails.
He also mentions the law of compensation. Unjust plans might win temporarily, but time favors fairness.
But the devil admits he can still lure back those who escape using purpose by appealing to their greed or ego later on. Need to stay vigilant.
What about his views on schools and churches?
He argues neither really teaches people how their own minds work, which is pretty fundamental.
He says fear and ignorance are the only things people need saving from.
And, in a shocker, says churches are his biggest allies, with schools a close second because they promote drifting.
Wow. So his idea of better education.
Individualized instruction, teaching how to think critically, bringing in real-world, practical knowledge.
And he defines sin simply as fear and ignorance. Faith is the opposite. Positive thought, connection to infinite intelligence, no negativity, definite purpose backed by belief.
Then there's self-discipline, the second principle, mastering 3 appetites.
Food, sex expression, and expressing loose opinions.
Yeah, basically controlling what you eat for mental clarity, transmuting sexual energy into productive action, and avoiding, gossiping or giving unsolicited advice.
Self-reliance is key in emergencies, he says. Rely on your own thoughts.
And the others, quickly. Learning from adversity, always a seed of benefit. Failure is temporary unless you accept it.
Controlling environment, we absorb habits from those around us. Choose wisely.
Time consolidates thoughts, good or bad. Use it intentionally.
Harmony, aligning with your purpose, creates harmony.
And caution, think before you leap.
So wrapping it up with Hill's own reflections, he saw drifting, hypnotic rhythm, and time as the big 3 factors shaping destiny.
And his conclusion was that maybe 98% of people are controlled by drifting.
He looked back at his own life, saw how sticking to his purpose with definiteness could have prevented many defeats.
His final message is pretty clear. Dominate desires can be achieved. You need definite purpose, plans, and then hypnotic rhythm and time will work for you.
It's strange, isn't it, that he felt he had to have this chat with the devil to get these insights after working with so many great minds.
Maybe it was about confronting the negative potential within, personified. He realized the principles were simple, and he held the power all along.
Like he had the matches to start the fire and the water to put it out regarding his own problems.
Exactly. Success and failure aren't random. They're the sum of your daily thoughts. We definitely encourage you, the listener, to think critically about this whole interview. Draw your own conclusions.
Hill's final thought is really potent. You hold the power. You can ignite or extinguish your adversities through your thoughts and actions.
So as you think about this deep dive, maybe consider your own drifting habits. Is there one area where applying real definiteness of purpose could make a big difference?
And think about past failures.
Mm-hmm.
What seed of equivalent benefit might still be hidden there, waiting?
Lots to mull over. We hope you'll keep exploring how these ideas might resonate in your own life.
Thank you for joining us on MetaBookNook.